Alright, hi guys, I'm Kiera and this is Kyle. We're the co-editors-in-chief of the newspaper here at CFISD. We want to welcome you to the April HS Day and Press Conference. We are excited to be hosting today, and we want to thank Joel for giving us this opportunity, and we want to say a special thank you to our speaker today, Mr. Bill Powell. Alright, so without further ado, here's CFISD Director of Transportation, Mr. Bill Powell.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As you said, my name is Bill Powell. I'm the Director of Transportation for Cypress Fairbanks Independent School District. I started my school bus driving career in 1989 when I was going to college to become a teacher. I was driving a school bus for the Canyon Independent School District for several years. Finished my degree in history. I became a teacher. I was a teacher for 1 year, and then I ended up going back to Canyon ISD as the Director of Transportation in 1996. Just a little over a year later, I applied for the Magnolia Independent School District Director's position, and I got that position in 1997. And then in 2001, Cypress Fairbanks created a new position for the Transportation Department, which was the Assistant Director of Human Resources for Transportation. And I got that job in 2001, and then in 2013, our Director of Transportation, Rick Terrell, retired, and I became the Director of Transportation in 2013. With that, I guess I'll open it up to questions. You'll have to forgive me on the protocol. This is my first question. Yes, ma'am.
You said you were a teacher just for 1 year?
Yes, ma'am.
What, did you end up not liking it, or what made you go back to transportation?
When I became a teacher in 1995, the teacher salary was $17,900 a year. When I was offered the director's position, it almost doubled my salary going back to transportation. Never thought it would be my career, but it ended up being. Yes, ma'am.
What is the most difficult aspect of your job?
There's several different ones. The biggest issue or the biggest challenge that we have, and this is across the state and across the nation, is finding good, reliable, professional drivers. We have been short drivers all year long, and it's across the nation. It's been an epidemic across the nation for several years. It's considered a part-time job. Our entry-level bus drivers, even though we pay $16.58 an hour to start, you're making less than $15,000 a year. So it's very difficult for those who really enjoy working with kids. Generally, they'll start out driving a bus maybe, and then, like I did, and then move on into a teaching position. So maintaining a good, full roster of drivers is very challenging. That's the most challenging part of our job.
What are you doing for that shortage?
What are we doing for that shortage? Everyone on my staff, at every transportation center, all of our area directors, all of our supervisors, all of our trainers, everyone is licensed to drive. So our office staff, our professional staff, they're all driving as well. Our technicians are licensed to drive, so we're having to pull them out of the shop and have them drive as well. So it's one way of covering it. The other way is we have to double back, which we do not like to do. Double back means one bus will pick up at an elementary school, take those kids home, and then have to go back to that elementary school. So kids are arriving home late. And that's our biggest challenge when we don't have enough drivers.
Just one quick reminder, guys, go ahead and say your name and where you're from, so we want to know who's all here.
Yes, sir.
Blake John from Cypress High School. So what are the specifications for becoming licensed to be a school bus driver?
Okay. You have to be at least 18 years of age. You have to take 6 additional written tests to obtain a certificate. Once you obtain the it's a permit. Once you obtain the learner's permit, then you're allowed to ride behind the wheel or drive a school bus with a licensed trainer, 21 years of age or over, in the front seat. Once you've passed all the written tests, and you've had your permit, and we've trained you on how to drive a school bus, then you have to schedule an appointment with the Department of Public Safety. With the Department of Public Safety, then you have to take a skills test, which includes a pre-trip inspection. You have to do a physical pre-trip inspection of the vehicle, a complete walk around, and a verbal communication of what you're inspecting on the vehicle. Then you have to take a driving test with the driver's license instructor on the bus. And then you have to clear a DOT physical and drug test, which has become more and more stringent over the years due to a lot of the commercial vehicle accidents that have occurred. Sleep apnea is a big thing on health reasons that have been attributed to some collisions in large commercial vehicles, charter buses, trucking industry, so that filters down also into the school bus industry. In addition to that, you have to complete a school bus driver certification program through the Texas Education Agency. It's a 20-hour classroom program, and then every 3 years after that, you have to recertify through an 8-hour certification program.
How long does that usually take?
With the scheduling of licensing, and we're very fortunate because just as of yesterday, we actually are able to have our own in-house DPS examiner. Prior to that, it was taking up to 3 months just to get certified and licensed to drive. Now we're hoping to cut that back to 1.5 to 2 months because we still have, we're training about 80 hours behind the wheel in addition to our classroom training program at Cypress. Good question.
Here, let's say clarify, how many bus drivers are there in the district right now?
Just classified as bus drivers, we have about 700. We're right at 700. Positions, we have 767 positions. So we're about 67 drivers short. Yes, sir.
Powell, Ron Slayton, Woods. How is the district keeping up with and changing their transportation with newer advanced technologies that are coming out, especially with better safety in some vehicles and things like that?
I'm so glad you asked that. We had in the May 2014 bond, our community was I can't thank the community enough for passing the bond that they did in 2014 because it included $72 million worth of new buses, a new transportation facility, camera upgrades, and some other upgrades within our department. That also included the GPS, which is global positioning systems on our school buses. Not only does the GPS help us be able to know where all of our buses are at any given time, we've added, as y'all can see, lanyards around your necks. We've added the student IDs, and that way we can account for all of our students that get on and off the school bus. And one thing that I'd really like for people to know, especially parents, with that card, they are able to go on and get an app, and they're able to get a notification of when their student swipes on the bus and when they swipe off the bus. It will send them a notification and the location and time of that swipe, so they can know that their child is safely on the bus and their child is safely off the bus at school, or safely off the bus at their stop. That's one part of technology that we've been advancing. The GPS also helps us with telematics, which means our vehicles are actually talking to our shop foreman, so they can give health reports of the status of the school buses as they're traveling down the road. So if they see anything that may be occurring before the driver is even aware of it, we're able to take care of that issue before the driver even knows there's an issue on the school bus. So that helps us save in downtime. And downtime is when we have the bus and it's not able to run on our own. That's one aspect of technology. Purchasing, being able to purchase the new school buses. Technology is evolving year after year. And it's, even on the school bus, just the motor itself, just like in a car, you have a computer that pretty much operates the entire vehicle. us being able to talk to the vehicle. That's the technology as far as the telematics are concerned. Other technology that has evolved in school buses is seat belts. You may or may not know that a Senate Bill 693 was passed in the last legislative session that requires seat belts on school buses that were purchased after September 1st, 2018. That's another technology that you'll be seeing on the school buses that are being delivered this summer to Cypress. Yes, sir.
Blake Knoll, Cypress High School. So just because this bill was passed, now we're getting seatbelts in the buses. Why were they not in there before?
The biggest thing is funding. It was difficult for decision makers to sometimes justify the expense. Several years ago, the cost of outfitting a school bus with seatbelts was about $10,000 per bus. The school bus, as it is right now without seatbelts, is 7 times safer than a passenger vehicle with seatbelts. So you sitting on that school bus was 7 times safer than you were in your parents' vehicle or in your own personal vehicle with a seatbelt on. So school buses have always been, according to the National Transportation Safety Board, the safest form of transportation for students to and from school and school-related events. That additional $10,000 expense, some districts have to look at that and say, well, and just like Senator Garcia recommended in a news story several months ago, she recommended instead of buying 10 buses, then just buy 8 buses. Well, if a district is only buying 8 buses, then the district's going to have to cut service somewhere. And that's not our recommendation. Our recommendation is we don't want to cut service, because if you're cutting service, then you're putting those students off a bus, which the district had to do several years ago when we lost several $1 million in funding. And we don't want to do that. We were able to add service back with the passage of the 2014 bond. So that's not a recommendation that we recommend. And when I say we, I'm the president of the Texas Association for People Transportation and a member of the National Association for People Transportation. It does need to be a district decision. Does the district want to expend additional funds on providing seatbelts in school buses, or do we need to put security vestibules in our building? Do we want to spend those additional funds, for other safety features on school buses, like collision mitigation systems or collision avoidance systems? Those are now available technology that's available on school buses. It's an additional expense, but that's something I think districts need to really review and look at rather than have a bill. And to be perfectly honest, on House Bill 693 or Senate Bill 693, the law actually says school districts can opt out of purchasing seatbelts on school buses. But the school board, it requires the school board to publicly state in a public meeting that they did not have the funds to purchase the seatbelts. So that's the only way that a district can opt out. But the Department of Public Safety has put into the state specifications for school buses and the minimum requirements that the bus be purchased with seatbelt. Again, you still have that caveat that the district can opt out, but I'm not aware of many districts that are opting out. Yes, ma'am.
Kiera St. Clair Simon. What does the Texas Association for People Transportation do?
The Texas Association for Pupil Transportation was actually started back in 1972 by transportation directors in the Gulf Coast area. And they basically got together to share ideas. And in 1974 it became the Texas Association for Pupil Transportation. The main reason is getting together, sharing ideas. It's a nonprofit organization, and we also provide training and certification classes. Updates on state reporting, updates on bus specifications, school bus driver training, personnel management, budgeting, you name it. We have several certification classes, staff development classes that we teach around the state to
So, could you describe what a typical day looks like for you?
personnel issues, parent issues, student issues. It's a gamut but okay, I'll try to walk through it. Getting to one of the transportation centers, we have 5 transportation centers in the district. My office is actually located in the West Bend Center, but I like to try to get to at least one of the other centers in the morning before I make it to the office. It's getting there, seeing the drivers, trying to hopefully have time and they're not running late. Try to at least talk to a few of them, see how their day's going. Talk with the supervisors, the area directors, any issues that have arisen, anything I can help with. Get to the office, respond to emails, answer phone calls, try to resolve issues that have come up. That's pretty much it. Do press conferences. No, actually, this is my first one. So. Yes, ma'am.
What time does your day start? Because I've been to the transportation centers in the morning. It's got to be pretty early.
Every day is different. My day actually starts when I get up in the morning about 4 o'clock and I'm opening my email. I may not get to the office till 6:30, 7:30, just depending on where I go. But that's about when it starts. If we have any issues in the morning, I'm getting text messages or alerts from our area directors that we have a critical shortage or we've had an accident or something like that. Yes, ma'am.
How do you teach drivers to simultaneously drive and watch the kids in the bus?
You can't drive safely and watch the kids in the mirror at the same time. What we train is you're always doing your mirror observations or your mirror scans. You have 7 mirrors in the school bus. So you're always, looking to your left, looking at your crossover mirrors, looking at your passenger interior mirror, watching traffic ahead. You're just doing a quick scan in each of your mirrors to monitor the traffic around you, monitor the traffic behind you, which are your students, and then monitor the road in front of you. So it's not that you really need to be looking in the mirror all the time unless you're stopped. If you're stopped, then you can address students in the mirror, or you can address students as you're doing your quick scans through your mirrors. So you really can't multitask while driving safely. The drivers really need to be focused on the road, and that's why we beg our students and work with our students to follow the rules. Stay in your seat. Don't be loud. Don't eat or drink on the bus. Don't be a distraction. There's too many distractions on the road for our drivers already with traffic. And we need our students to ride the bus safely. And that's stay in their seat, just like they're in the classroom. Yes, sir?
Kyle Rollins, Cypress. How has the transportation industry changed since you first started working in it?
That's a good question. How has it changed? Technology is one thing. That's one of the biggest things, technology. There really hasn't been a lot of change as far as our day-to-day operations, especially in Cypress. It's become more challenging, I would say, as far as student management. That seems to be our biggest challenge. We really need the support of parents, and we're not perfect. We're not going to handle every situation the way you may handle it as a parent. And it's a challenge. We've got 45, 50 kids on there, and we're trying to drive down the road safely. And for parents to think that it's an easy job, it's not. So that is probably the thing that has changed the most is the behavior of our students. Unfortunately, sometimes because it's not safe. It's like I say, it goes back to the challenges, and we just need cooperation and collaboration from parents and the students to
Have you guys, speaking on that topic, have you guys ever talked about possibly bringing in another monitor on the bus? And you know, how much, and if you look at that, how deeply you looked at that, like have you done a cost analysis? How much would that be to have a monitor on every bus route for an entire year? And you know, what could that look like? What would that look like? And you have a contingency plan just in case you have to. Sometimes we do things reactionary,
Right.
just to make it happen for an isolated incident or maybe for the entire district.
And you're absolutely right. We do it for isolated incidents. We do have some attendants that we have an attendant on every one of our special needs routes. So for regular ed, if we do have some challenging situations, especially sometimes with new drivers that really haven't mastered student management, we do have monitors or attendants that we can put on a challenging route sometimes. To have an attendant on every school bus, you're looking at an additional 620 employees. So just doing the math, that'd be a big hit to the budget. You're looking at $10,000 to $12,000 annually per person. So who's the math major? 12,000 times 625 people. Forget. Yeah, exactly. So we do, like I said, if we do have some challenges with student management on certain routes, we can, for a period of time, it can't be that, it's going to be all year, but we do work through that. Yes, ma'am.
Is it a privilege or a right for students to ride?
That is an awesome question. It is actually a privilege. One thing that a lot of people don't realize, the law only requires school districts to transport students with special needs. Does anybody know where Temple is? Temple, Texas, over off of 35. Temple, Texas, for several years only transported special needs students. They only started transporting regular ed students in 1992 because the law didn't require it. But their community got together and it was something that they wanted for their community, so they implemented regular ed transportation in 1992. So, and most districts across the state don't transport all their students. They only transport students that live 2 or more miles from their campus. So that's why it is a privilege, especially in Cypress, because if you get to a bus stop, we'll get you to your school. So we'll transport anybody that, like I say, gets to a bus stop. So it is a privilege, and that privilege can be taken away if behavior is causing concerns of safety. Then yes, we have to remove students from riding the school bus. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
What is the district protocol if there is an accident with the school bus?
If there's an accident with the school bus, our Cypress PD is contacted. One of my area directors will report to the scene of the accident. We have one going on right now, just right before this got started. We had 2 gentlemen run into the back of one of our school buses off of West Little York. So one of my area directors is at the scene. She was calling me, giving me updates on what was occurring at the scene. We also contact the campus administrators. Most of the time, we will have a campus principal or assistant principal or multiple, depending on the severity of the accident, show up at the scene. They arrive to help us when parents start arriving to the accident, and then the kids can't be released at that time because it's still under investigation. The campus administrators will help with the parents and let us take care of what we need to take care of, and that's investigating the accident along with the officers to determine preventability or what actually occurred. And then once depending on whether or not there are any injuries, there are certain criteria that have to exist where we will do a post-accident drug test. It's a DOT requirement for a commercial driver's license driver. But if we need to, we'll take another bus and offload the students off that bus onto another bus. and send them home. Our communications department is notified. They will send out a letter to the campus to be sent home to the parents to let them know what has occurred or what occurred, whether it be an accident or an incident, at the discretion of the campus principal. Yes, ma'am.
Carolyn Shannon, Cypress. Can you shed any light right now on the recent athletic distribution zoning? For example, like when the kids are making that run to another outlet and they get up in the late at night, or we get up at 4 in the morning, are we gonna have some sleep deprived drivers, or is that gonna have to be paid extra, like shift change, or
That's a great question.
taking those long drives that cost more money?
Right now, the way we are structured, and we have to remember that our main focus in transportation, our transportation department, our main focus is getting kids to and from school every day, morning and afternoon. So we do not take field trips during route times. We have over 400 coaches and staff members that are also licensed that drive field trips during route times. So we will have those coaches that will be driving a lot of those trips that are out of town. As a school bus driver, when I was in Canyon, we were driving 175 to 200 miles to play football. As a professional driver, you have to know your limits, and you have to know what you can, your limits. You have to know what you can and can't do. If you can't go home and get some rest in between routes, then you probably don't need to take that long trip if you feel like you can't do it. The College Station, it is a little ways, and it can be challenging, but if we have to, then, we'll get extra drivers to maybe go up after route or something that have been able to get some rest to help facilitate that. Good question. Yes.
Blake Knoll, Cypress High School. Do you find yourself recalling your time as a bus driver in Canyon? And does that sort of work its way into what you do now?
Yes, a lot of times. Anytime we have personnel issues, I know what it was like driving a school bus. I still drive a school bus. So I know what it's like, and I can relate. I can empathize with situations that occur, and like I said, we're not perfect. But I do reflect on it and every day, and it also helps me to help employees be successful, because I can share with them what worked for me and what didn't work for me. And sitting down and working through some issues that they may have with some challenging situations, I reflect quite often on those long routes that we had in Canyon. But I do. That's a good question. Quite often. Yes, sir.
Fred Miller, Cypress High School. You mentioned earlier the previous bond that had passed, and there was some stuff that came out of that. Is there anything you're still waiting to implement from that bond? And is there anything being talked about potentially for the next bond?
Yes, and yes. Yes, we still have buses to purchase. When I put together the report, it was for a 5-year bond purchase. So it was the replacement of school buses for the next 5 years. We do have needs after those 5 years, so 2020, 2021, with our growth that we're experiencing, we will need another transportation center. We will need more school buses. We will need to replace more school buses. We look at a 15-year replacement cycle for our school buses. So we're definitely going to need more buses, just for replacement and for growth. Other things that we would really need to look at is our video surveillance systems on our school buses. We're upgrading those. Again, that's technology I didn't even think about. But it's basically a hard drive on the bus that's recording the video and the audio on the school bus. So for camera systems, we're looking at upgrading to an 8 camera system. So we have better visibility within the cabin of the school bus. So those are definitely things that we look at for our next block. Yes, ma'am.
Abby Pikes, Italia High School. When you go to buy a new bus, is this something that you do online, or do you actually go to like a new bus dealership? Do you get to, do you test drive? I'm curious, do you
That's a
test
great
drive
question.
them? Like,
Yes.
how does that, what does that look like?
We actually, we've had vendors, there's 3 manufacturers that are able to sell buses, new school buses in Texas. International, Longhorn, and Woodward. We actually have the vendors that have stock school buses, just like you have, cars sitting on the showroom floor. They have school buses, and we actually have them bring them out, deliver them to us, and we let our drivers drive. And we let our drivers do surveys of different types of buses. So, and we get their feedback. We spec, they have to meet the minimum state specifications that's required by law. And then there's other options that you can add, such as air conditioning. Air conditioning is not a state requirement, but it's something that we put on our school buses beginning in 2005, 2006, 2007, somewhere in there. We began installing air conditioning. Camera systems is an option that you can add on the school bus. So we go through, we determine what we want, we add the options, we go out to what we call a request for price, and the 3 manufacturers will submit back the pricing with all of our options, and then we'll select the manufacturer of our choice that we have had the best service with, provides a value to the district as far as the cost of the school bus and the value of the school bus, and make that recommendation to the school board, which we just had buses approved Monday night at our board. Yes, ma'am.
Here, Cypress, how long is that whole process you just talked about?
Generally, the whole process, just in the procuring the school bus, the specifications, putting those together and going out for an RFP, a minimum of 2 weeks, because we'll have it posted for two weeks requesting proposals. Putting the specs together, we pretty much have gone from year to year on our basic specifications and the options that we want. So we're just kind of resubmitting those. Then, once we place the order and the company has a purchase order number from us, then they put them on the build list at the factory. And sometimes it will take up to 6 months before we actually get to the school buses. Yes, sir.
Blake Knoll, Cypress High School. Just a quick question about those buses. I guess that's the only thing we're talking about. Oh yeah. Is it legal for me to purchase a bus and drive it around, or do you guys have special permits?
It is legal. You would have to license it or register it as a private bus. You know what? That's really a good question. Because, and like in Louisiana, most of the parishes in Louisiana do not have school buses. There are people that have, you may drive through Louisiana and you'll see a bus in a yard. And it's private individuals that contract with the parents or the parish to transport their kids to and from school. So in Texas, I'm not sure of any other requirements. You can have a private school, you can have a daycare, but the only requirement is if you have a bus that is labeled a school bus and it meets all the specifications of a school bus in Texas, then it can only be used to transport students to and from school. So you would have to be a part of a school, or I guess you could drive around. That's a good question.
So with, a few years ago, there was auction, like somebody did a surplus auction of the buses and other vehicles and stuff. And I guess when you're selling it, you really don't care what people do as long as they get it, give you the money and haul it away. But were there a lot of private individuals that purchase things, and how often do those auctions happen? And what do you guys do with the money that you get? Is it stuff that you maybe supplement, like with the last bond election, how you might have with the buses that you're about to purchase, well, now you have to get seatbelts on all of them. So then that's an unexpected expense that popped up.
That would be a great idea. The money that we receive from the sale of the school buses goes back into the general fund. The people that are purchasing, there's requirements that we have to do to the bus before we can sell it. We have to cover up the school bus. We have to paint over it on the front, rear, and both sides. We have to take off our identifying information, which is Cypress. We have to paint over it or remove the decals. So there's certain things that we have to do before we can sell it. So there are a lot of private individuals that buy them, and I've seen some that actually some daycares have purchased some of our used school buses, and they're transporting them around now. Yes, ma'am.
Curious if there's talking about seatbelts, once they're implemented on the buses, it seems to be required to wear them as they would in a car.
Yes. You will see a sign at the front of the bus that says all passengers are required to wear seatbelts.
And what would happen if they refuse to wear a seatbelt?
They could possibly lose their riding privileges. Good question. Yes, sir.
Powell in Cypress. How do you train your drivers to deal with students who are driving themselves to schools, especially around high schools? Because it's been found that students who drive themselves do kind of pose an extra danger there.
Patience. It's challenging, and it's not just students. I mean, traffic around here is horrible. Construction. And it requires a lot of patience. And that's one thing Chief Mendez at the beginning of the school year said. His word for the beginning of the school year is patience. Everybody, needs to have a little patience. It's hard to train for that. You just train them to be professional drivers and courteous drivers. And that's the best you can really do. Let them know what's to expect. People are going to cut you off. They're going to pull out in front of you. They're not going to stop for your red lights. Several things are going to happen that first day of school. You need to be prepared for it. You need to be patient and be safe. Good question. Yes, sir.
Gary Nuremberg District, Paparazzi. How did the last hurricane and flood affect y'all? Did you lose any buses?
We did lose a bus that we had earmarked for the fire department to utilize for evacuations. It was caught in some high water, so we did lose that bus. We have drivers that were displaced and have not returned to the area, so we did lose some drivers during that period of time. Operationally, we prepared before the storm and secured our buildings. We ordered fuel just in case we didn't have fuel operational when school resumed. We know we needed enough fuel to last us until we could get some fuel, so we prepared. But the only fortunate thing was we did only lose one bus. Unfortunately, several of our employees lost a lot, just like many members in our community, in our school district. So it was a challenge, very challenging, and we were fortunate. Unlike some other districts that are still operating two high schools out of one high school, and campuses that have had to have classes at other campuses and share classrooms and cafeterias, and so I think we were blessed and fortunate. I don't want to say little impact that we had, but for our operations, it felt based on how others were impacted in the area. I felt blessed.
I heard you done a lot of planning and it really helped.
It did.
Another question. Why the buses that are painted white, the small ones, what do you use those for?
A lot of people do not realize that if a student or a family becomes misplaced or homeless, then wherever they end up in our area, you're living in Cyfair and for some reason you become homeless, or you're in transition, which we have over 300 students at Cyfair that are in transition right now. They're homeless. And if they find shelter in Houston or Sheldon or Channelview or Clear Creek, by law, we have to transport them to their home school. So we have to work in collaboration with the other district, where we transport the student one way and they transport the other way. So we utilize our microbirds, is what they're called. We utilize our microbirds for a lot of our homeless population. We also have several students in our district that have difficulty being transported with other students, so we're transporting them one-on-one in our district. And some of our special needs students that are ambulatory, we're utilizing those for some of those students as well. It's been very cost effective for us because those, we still provide additional training for those drivers, and some of the high intensity students that we're transporting in those, but it does not require the CDL license, so it doesn't take as long to obtain those drivers. So it's really been a measure that we undertook a couple of years ago along with several other districts in the state to not only combat the driver shortage of CDL drivers, commercially licensed drivers, but to meet that need of our homeless population. Yes, sir.
Thank you for Dejo's communication part. I guess a follow-up on Gary's question. So how far, currently, say right now, how far is the furthest we're going to transport maybe a student who was displaced?
Currently, right now, I think we're going to Galena Park would probably be the furthest. We have done the Clear Creek. We go to Conroe, Klein, Katy, Tomball, Magnolia, Sheldon, again, Channelview, Galena Park, Houston, South Houston. It's pretty much the entire area.
Can you elaborate on that lost bus? You know, just like, oh, it just kind of drifted away. Don't know where it is. Did insurance cover that? Were routes lost because of that? And was it earmarked for people to use because like, well, don't really mind if this gets scuffed up. Kind of like when you're lending something to a family member.
You're exactly right. Those are actually earmarked for auction. But we did set those aside to be utilized for the Florida Fire Department to use, and we didn't actually lose it as we don't know where it went. It just meant that the engine was compromised with water, and so we lost the engine in it, and it's not worth repairing the engine, so it was a total loss. We are self-insured, so we do not have insurance coverage that covers it, so we have to again fund those out of district funds. Yes, sir.
Blake Knoll, Cypress High School. A less serious question. Do you have any other names for the buses like Microbird, like the big ones, the small ones?
The only, and their real names they're not pet names or anything like that. Microbirds are microbirds because that's the name of the company that built them, and they're a subsidiary of Bluebird. Bluebird is a manufacturer of the school bus. There's International, and then there's Thomas. The Thomas are the ones that a lot of people refer to as the Tonka bus. It looks like a Tonka toy bus. It has the real sloped windshield. It's a more futuristic type bus, I guess you could say. We have 65 of those in the district. I'm sure some drivers have called their buses some other names, but when the AC is not working, or, no, it's Microbird is just a name brand of the bus. Yes, ma'am.
With the exception of the white buses, are they required to be yellow? Can you change the color?
Yeah. if they are transporting students to and from school with more than 10 students. So if you have 10 students on a route, 10 or more students on a route, then it has to be on a school bus that's painted yellow. That's the state law. So if there's students on the route, like I said, you know, we're transporting 1 or 2 or 3 students, and some of our homeless students, 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, you can use a passenger vehicle. The white microbirds are built to the same specifications as a school bus, except they're not painted yellow and black. Good question.
This is River Cypress High School. You mentioned before that the minimum age is 18. Have you had any current students ever try to apply to be a bus driver?
I'm not aware of any current students in Cypress. When I went back to Canyon ISD as a director, I had a high school senior that was driving a bus. We had 737 square miles, so all students, all grade levels were transported on the same bus. We didn't have the tiered bell schedule like we do here in Cypress. And he drove a route in the morning, parked the bus at the high school in the afternoon, got on the bus, picked up the kids, and came back to the transportation center in the afternoon. It worked well. Kids respected him, and he was. I often wonder where he is nowadays. But even prior to that, I had drivers that talked about it. You know, they were 16 years old in high school, especially back during World War II. Students were driving school buses because they had no one else to drive the buses. So back during World War II, they had students, mostly students, and teachers driving buses. Times have changed. Yes, sir.
To follow up to what the bus looks like, you said yellow was a state law. So across the country, are there other non-yellow school buses?
Let me correct myself here. It is a national law. School buses have to be painted national school bus yellow. Actually, it's called National School Bus Chrome Yellow, I believe. But that's the requirement for school buses in our industry. Yes, sir.
How many buses do we own? I don't know if you said that.
We have 1,041, including the microbirds. We have 80 we are expecting to be delivered this summer, with another 12, 13 coming probably first part of August. So 1,041 plus another 92 or 93. Again, where's my math?
11:30.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it true that a student who rode the bus all 4 years of high school can letter in bus riding? I've heard that all 10 years I've been here.
Really?
And
You
I've
can
been
letter
to-
in riding the school bus.
If you
That
ride
is,
it all 4
that is a
years.
rumor that I've heard, that if you rode all 4 years, you could letter in. So I was curious if anyone ever done that.
Not to my knowledge. That is interesting. Have you heard that?
Has anyone in this room know anything about that?
Yes.
I've heard about it.
Do you know anybody that has?
No.
No, we've always been trying to find someone.
Well, our area director at our Eldridge Transportation Center, her mother was the 5th female bus driver in the district. Her name is Miss Hill. We had daycare centers at each of the transportation centers back in the 70s, and she was in the daycare center. So as a young girl, she was in the transportation daycare center at Falcon. Grew up, drove a school bus, and became a supervisor, and then she became a routing coordinator. And a couple of years ago, we named her as the area director for our Eldridge Transportation Center. So if anybody should let her, it would be her. But, and she's done an awesome job. Been in the district 38 years as an employee. Yes, sir.
Fred Lindsay, Cypress High School. You mentioned earlier about the tiered schedule. Are the school schedules based upon transportation?
Yes and no. I would like to have the time in between the bell schedules a little longer, to give us a little more time, to be a little more efficient. But we have to work with administrators and what works for our students. I don't say we have to, we do, because we want what's in the best interest for the students too. I shared with the board several months ago, or I think it was last year, in a presentation, that if we didn't do our tiered bell schedules like we do, and we operated like several districts in Texas do, we would need another over 1,600 school bus drivers, just because of the number of students we transport. That's one of the things that I think I'm most proud of our drivers and our attendants in our district, is we are the largest we are the largest student transporter in the state as far as school districts are concerned. We transport about 80,000 students every morning and every afternoon. Houston ISD transports about 30-something thousand. Dallas ISD transports about 36,000. And it's because, like I was saying earlier, we transport everybody. If you get to a bus stop, we'll take you to school. Most districts will only transport you if you live 2 or more miles from your home campus. So based on our program and what we do, nobody really comes close to the amount of students that we transport, with the same amount of staff, and sometimes less staff than most districts. So I have to take it off to not only our drivers and our attendants, but our supervisors and our professional team and our technicians, because we do more than most districts. And I'm very proud of that fact and what we do for our district. Because it takes an entire team. We have over 1,200 employees in our department. And it takes every one of them to do what we do every day. Yes, ma'am.
Seriously, Claire, what is a moment or a time in your career that will stick with you forever?
We had a student that was killed by a drunk driver when she got off the bus. I won't forget that. She went to Blauman's. Her name was Nicole. That will still with me forever.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I'm sorry to follow up that
That's
one.
okay.
But so I understand that there's like a list of students that are could be assigned to a specific bus. Am I right? And I know that every now and then on the bus they'll take like a roll call, see who's actually riding the bus. A number aren't. Do they keep records of that? So could you look back and see like who consistently rode the bus throughout over the years?
That's a great question, and that's part of how we receive funding back from the state. We have to, it's kind of like, teachers are taking attendance in the classroom. We have to take attendance on the school bus. So we can, it's a huge formula. Matter of fact, I have to travel to Austin tomorrow to talk about school funding. But it's a huge formula based on linear density. And it's your number of students that you transport divided by the number of miles that you travel. And then that gives you an allotment number. Well, in order to get the number of students, we have to take roll. And there's certain times throughout the year that we take the roll. So yes, we can go back several years and say, oh, yes, this person was on the bus that day. But now with our IDs and swiping on and off the bus, we now have an electronic record, and we can pull that up. Which is a great safety feature, because a parent may call and say, is my child on the bus? Well, previously we would have to dispatcher would have to radio the driver and ask, is this student on the bus? And if the driver knows their students well, then yes, the student's on the bus. Relay that back to dispatch and then pull the driver. Now we can pull it up on our ground traffic control. if the student swipes on the bus. So that's why we have to have every student swiping on and off the bus, not only for accountability, but to verify that this is the route you're right on, this is the route you're supposed to be on, and this is the stop you're supposed to be getting off at. So those route rosters, roster of riders, they're sent to the tablet that's located on the bus. So when you swipe on, it tells us, yes, this is a rider. If it turns red, you're not a rider, and you're not supposed to be on that bus. So it's safety for us, and it's accountability and verification, and how we can monitor who's getting on the bus and who's supposed to be on. Great safety feature.
I think we have time for one more question, so whoever wants to fill it out for us.
Well, it's just kind of a better question following up on, you said the auction money actually goes into the general fund. When would you access the general fund? What do you use it for?
I never access the general fund. That would be a Stuart Snow question, or CFO. The general fund is established for use in the district. It wouldn't be something that me as my department would actually access. I have to submit a budget every year for all the expenses that I expect. We're currently operating about $43 million a year, including payroll expenses. So everything that I forecast that our department is going to need, I budget for and submit in January. And then we get our new budgets July 1. That's our budget year, July 1 to June 30.
Again, everyone, Al Director for Transportation, so a round of applause for our. Again, thanks to Cypress High School for hosting and Cypress Journalism. Again, for our honored guests, I think we have our gift. Oh, sorry.
This is one of our High School Journalism Network mugs. You can keep your coffee warm when you wake up at 4 a.m.
I'll keep my coffee warm. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
Quick reminder, everybody, this conference will be May the 17th at the Berry Center. Our guest is still to be determined. We're still shooting for the white unicorn, Sam McGuffey. Fingers crossed. But we'll let you guys know. Again, thank you.